Welcome to IMD's Industry Insights. We'll be right back.
Before we get started, I wanted to remind you to hit that like button. While you're at it, if you want to subscribe to our podcast, hit that button in the bottom right corner there, and that will get you subscribed. We do appreciate you being here. Let's get started.
My name is Mike Mukala. I am a Principal Solutions Engineer here with Epicor. I've been with the organization over 17 years, coming up on 18 years. I'm based out of Portland, Maine, and my role really has kind of two facets to it, right? First, I go out and I work with companies who are interested in either changing ERP or getting a new ERP. So I do a lot of discoveries, kind of the other side of the table from you and I, right? I would ask a lot of questions, then come back and do product demonstrations. The other half of my job is I do what's called customer value exchange workshops, which is a really cool part because I then go see customers typically about 16 months after their first go live, right? And I do typically about a 3-day workshop where it's first some listening, right? Tell me how things are going, what can we improve upon? And then the end of it is sort of, all right, let's do some tips and tricks. Let's see how we can get a little bit fine-tuned in areas. Because what we find, right, is people get trained to do things one way. And the analogy I always use is if you ever learned how to play golf. Right? My dad taught me how to play golf, and he said, here's a 7-iron. And I just played the whole round with a 7-iron, right? That's how people learn their ERPs. Here's how you enter a sales order. Here's how you enter a purchase order. But as you get a little bit more sophisticated with golf, now you've got a 5-iron, you got a driver, you got a flop wedge, you got all that kind of stuff, right? Same thing with ERP. It's like, okay, now maybe I use a hotkey here, and maybe I don't need to, do that full process if I'm going to drop ship this product, things like that. So those are the kind of the two main facets of my job, and I work with discrete manufacturers in the mid-market.
Our core audience is the small to mid-size manufacturers, job shops, all the way through, assembly.
Yeah.
So how would the Epicor products assist our core audience?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways to assist there, but some of the really important things that I think we do well is bringing everything into one place for the end user. When you're talking about small to medium manufacturers, they don't have 1 million people working at the company. So people wear a lot of different hats. So making it very easy to see that, hey, for this sales order, I'm dependent upon this work order, which is dependent upon this purchase order, and not having 3 people have to do that, going to one screen and being able to see those types of things. The other thing I think small to medium manufacturers kind of struggle with early on before they get into ERP is the concept of data collection. And of course that can come in a lot of forms, right? That can be a PLC connection, that can be backflushed, but we offer a number of different ways to kind of at least start collecting data on the shop floor, which can be very insightful.
Well, like I said, the smaller shops, when you say data collection, to a lot of them, they're like, what?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So what is the typical learning curve for your solution that for the smaller manufacturers that may not be accustomed to having that much technology behind them?
No, it's a good question, and certainly the challenge is different with different customers. But what I see often is I'll go to places, small manufacturers, and they'll say, gosh, we don't even have routers. Right? We don't even have operations on our bill. We know how to do it. We've been doing it the same way for many, many years, but we don't have that kind of stuff. So what I'll typically tell groups like that is, well, schedule one of those operations, right? Schedule the mill, schedule the laser, something like that. And just kind of start small where maybe I'm just saying a report quantity. Oh, I completed 5 today on this job, 6 on that one. And then you can kind of gradually grow into clocking in and clocking out. But the advantage of just doing a little bit of data collection, even if it's just one operation, is you can then get a data point that can start to reveal things like bottlenecks. And once you've smoothed out one bottleneck, as everyone knows, right, another one's going to pop up. It's like, oh, we got the laser taken care of, but now all of a sudden the assembly bench is backed up, or whatever it might be. So starting very small, and then choosing what really are you after, right? Are you after labor? Are you after scrap? Are you after material issuances? It can be all those things, but starting with one is a great way to do it.
Do these companies usually have a single point of contact that does this, or is it you have several people within the company that are dealing with different aspects of the software?
So from the end user's perspective, right, there's typically more than one person, right? We will have typically more of a salesperson, definitely more of a financials person, and then oftentimes you'll have procurement folks as well, but anything in between there. But I guess to answer your question more directly, is we would have more than one person. And then from data collection, you can kind of pick and choose what makes sense. Maybe you just have one data collection terminal, maybe you have 10. But the idea is everything's embedded and connected together. So if we have 3 people, that salesperson can see when the work order started, right? That financial person can see when that order shipped, so we can do the invoicing. So multiple people will be touching the system.
Say you've been through the pitch and the company has agreed to, yeah, this looks good for us.
Yeah.
From the time that it's installed and implemented, how long does it take for them to get up and running or I don't want to say the full capabilities because nobody probably uses the full capabilities.
That's probably fair, right? Yeah.
But what's your timetable from the time you're implemented to the time they get to the point they want to be?
Yeah.
On average, I know it's going to differ.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult question to answer, but I have some parameters we can work with here. But the first thing before answering that is it's important to note that Kinetic is a la carte, right? So there's 2 cores. There's a financials core and an operations core. And then you can add on to those cores. So you could do like an advanced planning and scheduling, for instance, right? Those are called modules. And based on the module profile, the answer to your question changes quite a bit. So if you're going to have very sophisticated scheduling, that's going to take a little bit longer. But if you're talking about just getting the cores up and running, 7 to 9 months is a very common time frame. You start adding more modules and start doing some automation, that goes to 9 to 12, things like that. Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good, that's shorter than I was expecting you to say.
Sure, yeah. Well, to be clear, if you're going to the bigger part of the mid-market and you start adding in all sorts of modules, yeah, it can go longer, certainly. But, low to mid-market, 9 to 12, 7 to 9, depending on your module profile. So here at Insights this year, a lot of really exciting announcements, right? A lot of those kind of surround AI, but there's some other things that I think are really tangible for the mid-market manufacturer, and one of those is called the Acadia Connected Worker. We show several use cases for it, but what you can think of this as is really sophisticated documentation. Everybody has documentation, whether that is a checklist for an assembly or a certification for a supplier. Everyone has this kind of paperwork. And what these are documents you can create, and they go into our database then, and we can start to say, okay, well, this certification is complete, so now I can buy from them. Or this employee has been trained on the mill. They can now run that mill. And the use cases are fantastic because it keeps everybody on the same page and on that same learning curve. And inside of each of these documents, the stakeholders, so maybe you're the end user here, you can acknowledge, hey, I read and I understood this. But then your manager can do an evaluation or an appraisal that says, hey, yep, Brian read and understood this. And then we can also do quizzes inside of that as well. So to make sure people are staying current as we maybe are manufacturing different products, getting different equipment, things like that. So AI is getting all the press, but for me, when I go to the shop floors, this is a tool that I'm seeing leveraged for work instructions and all kinds of really, really good stuff, and it's dead simple to use. It's almost like a very powerful Word document that can be routed for approvals and have tasks associated to it. So I'm really fond of that. But the big headlines here have been the agentic network of PRISM. And as I mentioned earlier, Kinetic is modular, so we can have different modules and other products that can kind of come into Kinetic. And the thought behind it is those modules and those other products become agents inside of PRISM, right? And PRISM is an AI tool, and the mid-market is full of different types of views on AI. Some people are very apprehensive and maybe arm's length, others are kind of all the way in. But what PRISM is doing, I think for us, is making the learning curve of sophisticated, powerful software really shallow, because now I can ask the question verbally, what we call cognitive ERP, and it's then going to call the appropriate agent for your question. So if I'm asking the question, how do I enter a sales order? It's going to call the knowledge agent. It's going to give me step-by-step how to do that and even show me how to do it. If I'm asking, what are the terms and conditions with our best supplier? It's going to call the ECM or the content agent and find the contract, pull back the terms in a summary view. So it's really helping us kind of shallow out that learning curve for ERP and new onboarded users. I guess kind of the last thing I would say, and if you spend any time here at Insights, you'll hear a lot about our deep industry focus. And that's real, right? So I work with discrete manufacturers, and in there I have my own niche of customers that I would work with in industry, so metal forming and things like that. And because of that, I think that Epicor's perspective on manufacturing and ERP is a little bit unique. And what I guess I mean by that is a lot of our competitors are ERP, right? So they're ERP for law firms, hospitals, gas stations, things like that. Ours are just discrete manufacturers. So I think we have a little bit of a different lens on things like data collection, bills of material, costing, and it's more focused on those discrete manufacturers. So I think that's probably a good synopsis of what Insights is about here.